Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome to Live from the Heartland for the week of January 9th, and I'm still Michael James, and my next guest is someone who I just got in touch with. I get a newsletter once a week, maybe more, called Good News for Humankind, the world's latest positive milestones for climate, justice, peace, health, and more. And it's put together by a fellow named Peter Schulte, who's up there in somewhere in the state of Washington. And I'm always really joyed to read it because it's like good news about things happening everywhere. So hello to you, Peter. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm here up in Bellingham, Washington, not far from the Canadian border, and I'm doing great. Yeah, it's great to be here.
And how often you go to Canada?
Well, I have two young kids, so I'm often, not gallivanting around too much, but maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I love Vancouver, so I go up there every now and then.
Well, we're rooting for Canada, even more so than when our current president started bad-mouthing them and talking invasion and annexing.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do? You're kind of a coach for, I guess, mental health and business acumen. I'm not sure what that means, and how you started putting together this really wonderful newsletter.
Yeah, well, it's been kind of a long journey. So I'm Peter Schulte. I'm a coach and a writer and also a musician. I had a long career in kind of international sustainability. I helped through the UN system develop corporate water, climate, and water climate sustainability practices. But for the last 4 or 5 years now, I've been a coach. And so I help what I call purpose-driven leaders do good in the world, but in a way that actually feels good and is personally sustainable and fulfilling and inspiring. So many people who want to do good in the world are also burnt out, trying to take on too much, stretching themselves thin. And so I'm trying to help people find that balance. And, one of the ways I do that, maybe for the better part of a decade now, I've compiled this newsletter. For a while, it was every week. Lately, I've been doing it every day. But it features good news from around the world, like you said, for climate, for peace, for justice, for health, democracy. And, the intent is not to say, like, hey, everything in the world is great. It's just we're so inundated with bad news these days. And part of that is it's a really troubling time for the world and for our country in many ways. But it's also a function of our technology. We have access to news from every corner of the world, and it can be overwhelming. So the intent here is just to give people who want to do good in the world a little spark of inspiration and a reminder that good things can and are happening.
Well, you certainly do put out in your newsletter information that's really positive and good, and I'll mention a few in a minute. But I also know that in your most recent letter, you talked about I had definitely had my time as an annoying liberal white guy on Facebook. And you kind of then decided you didn't want to take on heavy issues because it alienated people, it upset them and all that. But all of a sudden, you're feeling the need to talk heavier stuff at a time when the world seems to be in dire straits, so to speak.
So, like many of us, maybe 10 years ago, I was pretty active on Facebook and social media and felt some need when someone expressed a viewpoint different than mine to correct them, quote unquote, or get into it. And somehow it felt like that was productive and necessary and part of some important societal discussion. And, what I kind of realized is this makes me feel horrible. I'm so much of my energy now is going to arguing with people on the internet who aren't going to change their mind. I'm not going to change my mind. And I would leave feeling frustrated and annoyed and with my energy that, siphoned off toward arguing. And after a while, it just, I felt like I just wanted to be focusing on positive things and conversations where there's real movement. But lately I'm also wanting to combat that, or not combat that, but just also get into some of the harder issues or controversial topics that maybe I've been scared to, or not wanting to offend people, because so many of the basic assumptions and beliefs that are guiding our society, I think, are unhelpful, and we need to look at them and discuss them and transform them.
I like that. In your most recent newsletter, and why don't you tell people how they could get your newsletter?
Sure. So you can subscribe. It's for free. It's at peterschulte.org/subscribe. It's really easy from there. You just sign up and you can either sign up for a weekly edition or a daily edition.
And how do you spell Schulte for everybody?
Oh, yeah. Schulte is Schulte. And you could also, I think, probably just Google Good News for Humankind, and hopefully that brings it up.
I like the title, Good News for Humankind. Let me share with the viewers and listeners some of the things that you brought up in the most recent newsletter that I received. Sure. And I'll start here. It says, stop the Trump administration's plan to mine the ocean floor. Proto-humans, perhaps in modern-day Serbia, began using sewing needles 50,000 years before Christ. Yeah. Stingless bees from the Amazon are granted legal rights in, I forget where that is. And Los Angeles County raises $363 million in medical debt. That will let about 153,000 low-income residents off the hook. Somalis vote in the first one-person, one-vote local election since 1969. China unveils the world's first commercial supercritical carbon dioxide-powered generator. Where do you find all these things?
Yeah. So the way I structure it is this is the weekly edition. It starts with 5 pieces of good news from around the world. And I really do my best to cover a lot of different topics, from climate to health, like I said, and from different places around the world, to kind of create like this more of a global sense rather than just where we are locally or nationally. And then you mentioned like the proto-humans thing. There's one thing that is maybe different than other, kind of good news is I have this archive of what you might call good news from throughout history. So things from the past that were kind of moments of human ingenuity and pushed us forward. And then I also include these like imagined good news from the future, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in the future. And the idea is that we're putting the good news of today in this context of humanity evolving and growing, and progressing is maybe a difficult word. It's not always progress, but trying to create this movement through time and this sense that throughout history, we've been evolving into new ways of being, and we can keep going with that. And then finally, I include usually some sort of petition or some sort of practical way people can help create their own good news. So it's not just passively getting a spark of inspiration, but also like, here's how you can actually do something and put it into action. Yeah. And what was the last question you asked?
Well, I was going to say, why don't you give us a little information on the ocean floor and the mining? Because the oceans are currently the battlegrounds, at least today, with the Venezuelan tankers and the U.S. Coast Guard, et cetera. And I've been seeing for some time, the loss of coral, a lot of other things going on. And apparently the Trump administration is making plans to mine the ocean floor.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know a ton about it. I wouldn't say I have deep knowledge of it. I have my various sources for petitions and actions. But my understanding is they're trying to open up the ocean floor for deep sea mining, and it can be incredibly damaging to marine ecosystems And this was just a petition, I believe it was from Earth Justice, to call into our Congress people and combat that. But I wouldn't profess to have any kind of deep knowledge about it. I just kind of rely on these organizations who are putting them together.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the stingless bees from the Amazon?
Yeah, sure. So, there's this growing movement to give animals and also like natural, like rivers and mountains, legal rights to protect them. So this was among the first, I believe this was in Peru. There's these stingless bees that are really critical for pollinating the rainforest and keeping the rainforest thriving. And Peru, or 2 districts within Peru, for the first time, have given these bees legal rights to make sure they're protected.
I like that one. And how about the Somalis voting?
Yeah, so Somalis for decades now have not really had meaningful votes, like a one person vote. They vote via these like clan systems. And for the first time in the capital, Mogadishu, they had like an actual free election where people actually get votes. And they believe the hope is that this is a precursor to opening up elections across the country.
What do you got in your hopper for issues coming up that you could share a little information on?
Oh, yeah, let's see. Today, one I was working on is China has just made a major breakthrough in the development of nuclear fusion. They were able to heat plasma to a density for a long, I think 17 minutes, that just shattered records for what we could do that. And I don't know how much you know about nuclear fusion, but it's thought of as kind of the holy grail of clean, renewable energy, potentially being able to supply limitless amounts of carbon-free energy. And while this step doesn't make it, commercially viable yet, it's thought of as like yet another really positive, critical step in that direction. And, I've been tracking the development of nuclear fusion through the newsletter for years now, and it's every year get a step closer. So we'll see if it ends up coming to pass, but it seems like it's moving in that direction.
You got one more for us?
Yeah, yesterday's the Faroe Islands, which is this semi-autonomous set of islands, I think kind of northwest of Scotland, legalized abortion. And they had one of the strictest abortion laws in all of Europe, and have just made it, fallen in line with the more progressive Nordic countries. So that's another one. Let's see. Let me dig out another one. Oh, yeah. So there's this state in India called Assam. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's thought of as like the stronghold for one-horned rhino. It's like 70% of the world's one-horned rhinos live there. And for the second time in 5 years, they had 0 cases of poaching in 2025. And that's, after there was one, I think in 2022. And before that, the last time that happened was in 1979 or something like that. So they've implemented all these new policies and protections for the rhinos, and it seems to be working.
I'm really liking this. And what I'm going to say right out loud is that Peter Schulte, who puts out Good News for Humankind, the world's latest positive milestones for climate justice, peace, and health, and more. You'd be a great contributor once a month to share a few of these little gems that you come up with. I hope I can have you back.
Sure. Oh, and you asked where I got them. And I have kind of I use this program called Feedly, but it, goes through all these websites that are kind of generating news like this. So every morning I get up and there's often like 50 to 100 new options. And I kind of just go click through and looking for ones that seem really meaningful and from different parts of the world on different topics. But I just kind of have this curated list that I can go through. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Peter, what is your current take on the world situation? And what are your hopes?
Yeah, well, I think of us as in a particularly dire time across a number of issues. The climate crisis is the one that I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but is the one that most worries me. You know, I have 2 young kids, and it seems like a very real possibility that we don't figure this out in time to really prevent mass destruction. So that's one. But, you know, just here in the States, just seeing what the Trump administration is doing, it's not only, you know, in the Bush years, it was like, okay, I strongly disagree with this. There's this new sense, and I know I'm not saying anything new, but just the cruelty of it and the kind of, I don't know if I have quite the right words for it, but it just seems nasty and kind of overtly mean-spirited in a way that is deeply distressing. I ended up making this bumper sticker for myself that says, make kindness cool again. And if anything, you know, like, of course, there's policy issues that are really important. And then more broadly, it's just like, can we get back to, if we ever were in a place where we can operate and discuss in good faith and just treat each other with decency, knowing there's going to be political differences of opinion, but can we at least try to engage with each other with some good faith? And it seems like we're losing that.
I like that. Make goodness cool again. I always say, I learned this from my daughter, Koya, who runs the Free Street Theater here in Chicago. They talk about joy and justice. And I've been saying more joy and justice. And I like make goodness cool again. Peter Schulte, tell us just a little bit about yourself, what a coach does, the kind of coach that you are, and tell us what your musician stuff is all about.
Yeah. So, I've heard more about like the joy. There's like, you know, a book called Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown, and just this increasing idea that these justice movements or progressive movements, we're dealing with heavy, traumatizing issues a lot of the time. And in a way, you know, the most transformational thing we can do is operating from joy, love, and kindness. And I love that idea. And a lot of what I'm doing is I'm working with people who want to do good in the world, but getting out of I don't want to say getting out of it, but balancing the hardship of it all. And the idea that this has to, you know, there's maybe an idea that we need to kind of sacrifice our mental health, our well-being, our joy in order to do good in the world. And I like strongly disagree with that. We really not only can, but our work is so much more effective when we can come from it with that kind of lightness of being, that joy, that kindness, that love. And if any, you know, I do a lot of different things, but that's kind of the core of it, is getting people into a sense of purpose out in the world, but in a way that actually feels good. And maybe I'll leave it there. Oh, and you asked about the musician. So
go ahead.
Music for me is, I just believe that, yes, we need to do work in the world that's often hard and difficult. And the more that we can also engage with things that just light us up and fill our batteries and fill our cups, that gives us more energy to go do good in the world. So it's like, for me, music is just a passion, and it makes me feel good, and it gives me the energy to go grapple with difficult things in the world. So for me, it's music. For other people, it might be art or, you know, mountain biking or whatever, but I'm always encouraging people to create some space in their life just to do something that fills them with joy and inspiration. And for me, that's music.
Well, you're an impressive young fellow, and I really like getting your newsletter. I don't know how it first started, but I'd look forward to it. And I'm really glad that we linked up. It is a dire time. Music is good. I've always believed that we have to have a good time, and as well as put in our energies toward making the world a better place. I do have a favorite band. I don't know if you know them, Twin Peaks. They're coming back. For those people in here in Chicago, they are coming back after a few years. They're doing 8 shows over at Thalia Hall. They're all sold out in minutes, and that's enough on my kid. Peter, what instrument do you play? Are you a guitar player?
I do. I grew up playing piano, and now it's mostly guitar, and I love to sing. Yeah, that's my key instrument.
Okay, tell us one more time how people can get your newsletter.
Yeah, so peterschulte.org. You can hit the subscribe button. It's free, and you can do the weekly version, the daily version. You could also probably just Google Good News for Humankind, but would love for folks to sign up and get in touch. Just like you reached out, I love hearing from my readers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I did it, and I was glad you responded, and I'm looking forward to talking with you again. So everybody else, this is Peter Schulte. Now I'm Michael James.